Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Cake Eaters Avalanche podcast. We have a great show for you guys today. The final cuts were kind of announced today. We're not entirely sure. It's all been very confusing. It's all been very Jared Bednar in Avs country right now. But before we get into that, we got to start off with some more serious news. As I'm sure most of you, if not all of you, are aware, Erik Cole was accused of grooming a minor. In fact, I think in the letter it said multiple minors. So, yeah, hockey culture has not been at its best lately, and this is just another in a long string of incidents.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of glad that, the person who was groomed and, saw other people being groomed, like kind of came out and, I guess for the lack of a better term, exposed Erik Cole for what he was doing, because that's going to lead to more of this, and that's a good thing. We need more. We need more of this. Exactly what happened today? Someone tweeting it out with all the facts laid out, and I think it's one of those things where it's like I don't see a way where like this could be a lie, because who would ever wake up one day and just be like, I'm just going to ruin Erik Cole's career, So I think this is a really good thing. And obviously what Erik Cole did is terrible, and we need it out of hockey.
Not it. Yeah, it's we hope to God that there's no other instances like this, but that person speaking up does give hope to people that might unfortunately have experienced or will experience situations like that, the courage to speak up. And that's the most important thing. I will also give the NHL a little bit of credit. I saw someone tweeted out earlier today that, normally if some random person just tweets this out, they're going to be like, okay, well, we're going to investigate this. And then the guy just keeps playing. But the NHL and the Lightning did the right thing, and they suspended Cole. Granted, he still does get paid, but it's more of a symbolic gesture than anything, and that's the step in the right direction for at least the league, in terms of what we've seen in years before.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he shouldn't be playing, obviously, after all that comes out. Hopefully they'll do a thorough investigation, and we'll see how all of that goes. But for now, it's good that he's suspended, and it sucks that they don't have some sort of policy to where he can't.
Yeah, they. It's. I was actually really surprised to learn that earlier today, that they have no policy whatsoever. So.
Yeah. Next CBA.
Yeah. But anyways, on to the lighter side of hockey, depending on who you are. So on Saturday, Shane Bowers and Martin Kaut were reassigned to the Eagles. They were put on waivers, cleared, much to a lot of people's surprise, especially with Kaut. I'm sure a lot of people expected Kaut to be claimed, but I guess after today's wave of waivers, I guess, for lack of a better term, I can kind of see why no one claimed Kaut. There's a lot of quality players getting waived lately in the NHL. And then earlier today, Mikhail Maltsev and Anton Bleasdale, which did come as a bit of a surprise after the Kaut and Bowers wave.
You're going to have to edit that.
Mate.
Sorry.
Let's keep that in.
I have no idea.
You can keep it in if you want.
I think we got to keep that in, for the viewers. Make sure to love your mom.
Sounds good
everybody.
to me. Yeah.
All right.
I love my mom.
Anyways, Anton Bleasdale. After Kaut and Bowers were sent down, everybody was like, all right, well, here comes Anton Bleasdale staying up. No, he gets sent down along with with Mikhail Maltsev. Now, however, that doesn't necessarily mean they're being sent down to the AHL. They could stay on the team, but this time they don't. If they do get sent down to the Eagles and the Avs get healthy, they won't have to go through waivers again. But it seems weird considering we heard from Bednar that today was going to be final cuts, and that feels like final cuts. But I don't know who will fill that 12th forward role. I've heard some talk about McDermott. He did play the last few games of the preseason as a forward. And then obviously Sedlak stayed up. And there is some rumbling, not from anybody credible, that maybe this is a sign that Darren Helm will play. I'm not sure about that. I very much doubt it, unless he's like, they're just really being precautious, and come Monday and Tuesday, he's just out there buzzing in practice.
Yeah, I think Bednar said he's a no for opening night. But yeah, just kind of a roller coaster of emotions, right? Like yesterday, seeing that Kautenbauer's got waived, I kind of had a little mini meltdown on Twitter, kind of right when it happened.
Yeah.
Because I'm just not a huge fan of Bleed and Sedlak.
I think Blake doesn't like Anton Bleed.
I think it'll be fine. I don't think your 12th forward matters too much. In the course of a hockey game, in the course of a season, especially, it's probably just going to be a couple weeks here until you get home, and then Landeskog,
right?
Who knows how long down the road, and obviously Compher should be in as well. So
yeah,
I think we're just looking at one spot. So
Compher's still in red jersey, but it looks like he's expected to play. But we're still not entirely sure. I think with McDermott getting shifts at forward, I think this has kind of always been most of the Avs fans' kind of perspective, is that he's a better forward than a defenseman, and I would tend to agree. And personally, I prefer him over Bleed. I just think he's at least a little bit more effective. They're just the same person, except McDermott's just bigger. And he'll actually, I don't know. I don't really believe in, that he's going to prevent anything from happening, but I think he's got a little bit more talent. I don't know, shall we say? I don't know. He's got a little bit more of just NHL ability.
I have never put Curtis McDermott and NHL ability in the same sentence, so that's very bold of you.
Hey, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say Curtis McDermott's good. I have always been his biggest defender, but at the end of the day, I'm not saying the guy should get regular minutes on the Avs, but he's definitely fine as a 12th forward for the Avs. I feel like especially considering why'd you give him the money if you're just gonna because he should play forward, and he should be playing over Bleed and Sedlak. I would prefer Kaut over McDermott. I think that's the most surprising thing, is that there was no Martin Kaut. I feel like everybody expected, given the camp Martin Kaut had. That's something that this is something that I went off on Twitter. Bednar said he went quiet, and I'm frustrated about that because he was playing with Sedlak and Bleed. What were those two doing the entire preseason? They were either being actively bad or they were being quiet. Martin Kaut actually showed positives. Every single guy they have called up, every single AHL vet outside of Kiefer Sherwood in one game against the Kings in February of last year, has done jack shit as a member of the Colorado Avalanche. Martin Kaut has done more than any of them have, and the last time he was up was 2020 before the pandemic. Why aren't you giving this guy the chance that he deserves? It's just all sorts of doesn't make sense to me, to be quite honest. And then, to be quite honest, also, Sedlak was worse than Bleed was in the preseason. He had no concept of the defensive zone structure, and somehow he stays up. I don't often want to question Jared Bednar because he's a damn good coach and probably one of the, if not the best in the league. But there's some times with these things I'm just like, what?
Yeah, I'm gonna echo the same thing. But at the end of the day, I just don't think your 12th forward spot matters too much, especially with the Avs. They went the entire season last year playing Jason Megna 6 minutes, Curtis McDermott 4 minutes some nights, and they were fine. Curtis McDermott got 50 games, and I'd be willing
most
to
of
bet
those are as a defenseman, though.
Yeah, but still, I'd be willing to bet his average time on ice was like 6 minutes. So I just don't think it's that big of a deal. Just with how the team functions, how Bednar deploys his players. Like, I'm just not like I'm at the point where I've given up. Like, I don't care. It's your 12th.
Yeah, it does feel like at this point, Bowers and Count's hopes of making the NHL roster with as a member of the Colorado Avalanche is just not existent anymore.
I mean, definitely Bowers, right?
Right. Bowers, I feel like pretty confident unless he gets something, some sort of random call up this year to the surprise of everybody. I don't expect anything to come from him. Kaut might have another chance. I mean, maybe they're going to feel more comfortable calling him up now that no one has expressed any interest in him on waivers. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's an interesting conversation.
I think if Kaut gets a look in the middle six, which is very unlikely, I think he sticks because when he's playing with better players, he's better. That's just how he's always been. Even in the AHL, I've been to a few Eagles games, and the games where he's playing in the bottom six for the Eagles, back in his early AHL days, he looked terrible. And the more recent years, when he's up in that top six, he looks great. So I think he's one of those guys where
it's got to be that JT Compher.
I think he's better, like a better play driver than Compher.
Yeah.
Skill wise, I mean,
I would definitely agree with that.
Compher's obviously really good in his own zone, quietly, maybe not on the PK, but at 5v5. Martin Kaut, we don't know yet because he just hasn't played. But like you see these little things he does on the ice, right? Where he takes a puck on the wall, makes a quick little pass to spring a guy. And you're like, wow, that was really good hockey. And I just don't know. I just don't know what they're seeing in these other guys, but I will, like I said, I've given up, so I don't care. It's your 12th forward spot, whatever. Go win a cup.
This isn't something that's going to sink the team. It's just frustrating to see that you spend, at least for Kaut, your own first round pick on him, and you're spending assets to get these guys, and you're just not giving them the chance over these dudes that you signed in free agency. It feels like poor asset management, but how are you going to fault a team that just won the Stanley Cup? So, oh well. So we don't really have a good idea of what the opening night roster is going to be because no one really knows if Bleed or Maltsev are getting sent down or if they're just.
Oh no, they're not. They're not getting sent down. No. So he said that was just for cap flexibility. So they're already starting. They're already starting that game, right? They're you got to trade for Patrick Kane at the deadline, right? Got to have some money somewhere. So that they're kind of starting that, and that's all that was for because they know neither of those guys are going to get claimed. I mean, I'd be surprised if either one of those guys.
Yeah, I wouldn't be super shocked if Maltsev got claimed.
I mean, he's a younger guy, but like everybody's sending their Mikhail Maltsev on waivers right now, right? Everybody's got a Mikhail Maltsev.
Yeah, exactly.
So
but one of those guys isn't going to be on the opening night roster. One of those two, maybe Sedlak.
Obviously, I'd prefer Sedlak to not be, but
that's just given Helm usually plays the center role on the fourth line, and that's kind of Maltsev's niche. I would prefer him to be in. And then, one of Bleed or Sedlak on one wing and then Cogliano on the other. But we shall see. Nothing really to go off of yet so far. Because Compher hasn't really been practicing as much with the regular guys. So it's hard to tell, but we do expect him to be in. So we're going to go over what we expect from some players on the Avs that are, have some stuff to prove or have their kind of role on the team is a little bit not as solidified, stuff like that. Now here's a guy, obviously, Nathan McKinnon. Like, this isn't as much as just, what kind of season is he going to have? It's like everybody has seen and has been talking about how good he's been. He played one preseason game, and I think he ended about 7 guys' careers by just making him touch earth. Like every time he got on the ice in that last Stars game, he was just sending dudes.
He also threw Colin Miller to the ice for touching Arturi Lehkonen, so that was fun in a preseason game.
It's clear that Nate's got that dog in him. I don't know what the ceiling is for this man this year. If there's one year that I think he's going to finally crack 100 points, it's this year. He just has to stay healthy.
Yeah, and I mean, we've already seen, like, second day of practices, he gets a puck to the face. He's out for that preseason game. And then yesterday, he tweaks something and he misses a little bit of time at practice.
Yeah.
And then he's just back today random. Like, he's just totally fine. So
yeah, I wonder if these things are like actual, like, would be actual problems for someone who's not Nathan McKinnon, or if they are things where because he's Nathan McKinnon and because he's so good, they feel comfortable. They just want to hold him out. They just want to make sure that he's okay. But boy, I mean, it does also kind of feel like the universe's sign, maybe a little bit of a hint. Maybe he's just never going to hit 100 points.
Oh, he's been on I don't see. I've always felt weird about the 100-point barrier and like the 90-point barrier. I'm more of like a points per game kind of person.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, last year, if he played 82 games, he would have had 110 points and he would have had 40 goals. Like, that's sweet. Health just, you get unlucky sometimes. Sometimes
Right.
you get elbowed in the face by Taylor Hall. So I think his health is just one of those things that I think it would be a disaster, obviously, if you lose him for like more than 40 games, because then who's your 1C? Maybe you have to make that trade a little bit earlier, and maybe you have to give up more in that trade than you want.
Assets are going to have to be leaving.
So I think his health is important. If he can get to 65 games, at least, I think even at 65, 70 games, like, the man could push 100 points.
Yeah, that's kind of my stance on it too. Is that as long as he plays like a decent amount of the games, he's always threatening to get 100. And if he isn't, then it doesn't really matter. Like his he's such a special player, and we saw last year he wasn't putting the puck in the net for a while, but my God, we see racking up assists. That he had like some ridiculous points per game numbers. I think he was at like 1.6 at one point with like significant games played. It was ridiculous, and no one really talked about it because he had been hurt, and the actual numbers weren't as high. But
he was at like 1.2 assists per game.
It was
like 40 games in. He ended at 0.85, which is insane. But yeah,
right. If it wasn't for the injuries and Cale Makar going off, like, people would have been talking a lot about Nathan McKinnon, because people kind of just let it slip under the rug how good of a season he had last year. He was
so good,
really good.
And then the playoffs, he was awesome as well. So
yeah, I mean, when isn't he? Let's be honest.
Expectations are sky high. Probably the highest they've ever been for him.
Right.
I mean, I'm expecting him to keep doing what he's been doing, and maybe even at a higher level. I would like to see him score some more goals, because I think he's going to have to. I know he's
with
40 goal
Bert
pace last year.
This is something I've been thinking about with Burakovsky gone.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
He's going to kind of have to, and especially with Landeskog not playing for a little bit. And we know he has that goal scoring capability in him. In 18-19, he did hit 40.
And even when Landeskog returns, he's not going to shoot 20% again. Like,
right. Well, he might. I don't know, man. That guy's just kind of been doing that. He just kind of scores goals. His style of play just kind of, inflates those numbers a little bit.
I think it'll go back to his career average. Maybe if it stays a little above, great. But I don't think it's going to be 20 again.
I expect it to kind of float in the middle of those two. Just with kind of how, just a little bit of a circumstance with how well his line mates have been playing, and like I said, his style of game. But we all know how good Nathan McKinnon is. But there's a new guy in town, Evan Rodriguez. Now, he had a really good first half of the season last year, like really, really damn good. His second half, not so good,
The
but
second half was JT Compher.
yeah, does have a chance to play with a little bit more talent, and like we saw in that first half, that's kind of what is the key for him. He's a really talented player, but he just needs a little bit more talent around him to kind of provide meaningful, like points and stuff like that. He's always going to be a good player for you. It depends on whether or not he's, showing up on the score sheet. What are your expectations for Evan Rodriguez this year?
He is one of the more interesting ones for me. I can't get a read on him from what I've watched so far. I mean, sometimes you're like, wow, this guy's really good. And then sometimes you're like, wow, this guy lacks any and all skill. I mean, flubbing scoring chances, but like
he had a rough
creates all these
preseason.
chances as well. Like, I don't know. I would expect at least 35, 40 points at bare minimum, just especially with all this opportunities, getting in the top six and playing with guys like Val Nichushkin and maybe even Mikko Rantanen, obviously Newhook to start, higher skill guys who play at the pace that obviously he's comfortable playing with. So I think bare minimum, it's got to be 40 points. If he's especially if he's going to get looks in the top six to start the season. So
yeah, you expect him to get a few shifts with Nathan McKinnon. We always know how that goes, as long as they have like the tiniest bit of chemistry.
Absolutely.
Look out! I would agree. I'd expect him to get a pretty average level of production. Kind of lower second line tier level. But if Alex Newhook takes off, I could see Girard hitting like 60 or something.
Yeah, but I think his ceiling is like 60, 65 points.
Yeah.
He kind of profiles as that guy. He's fast. I was impressed. He knows where to go, and I was impressed. He created a lot of chances for himself that he just wasn't finishing.
It's kind of like how Nichushkin was before last year. He's doing the right things. He just needs to figure out how to fill the net more consistently.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, he's not going to shoot 7.6% again this year, so I expect him to score more goals than he did last year. I don't know how the assist numbers will shake out. I'd imagine they're about the same, but I think 15 goals, 40 points at bare minimum is what they're going to need from him. So,
yeah. But now we're on to his line mate, Alex Newhook. So Newhook, we heard from Bednar today, is going to get a long look on a big opportunity to take the 2C role. He said he was going to get multiple months in the position and maybe even up to the trade deadline. Now, with a young player like Newhook, it's hard to predict what he does because we see the flashes. He had 30 points last year. He wasn't amazing in the playoffs, but we've seen that he has the ability to be a really talented player. He just has to keep taking these steps. I don't expect him to take a huge step. I'm not expecting him to, get a point per game. I'm not really expecting him to get over 60 points. I'm thinking 50 points for Newhook this year. What do you think?
Here's my Alex Newhook thing. Like, he looked so good at camp, first of all. And then second of all, like, his defensive fancies are very good especially last year for a rookie center.
For a rookie, yeah.
He was in the 65th to 70th percentile in 5v5 defense all season. It just stayed right in that range. And that's really encouraging because that tells me that, hey, even if he doesn't break out for 60, 70 points, if he's more of your 45-point guy, he can still play 2C because he's going to be responsible back in his own zone and up and down the ice as well. I really like his neutral zone play. I think he's really smart. He he knows where the open ice is at all times. It's it's one of those things like either you have it or you don't, and he does. And that's the thing that encourages me the most is he has the playmaking and the hockey IQ up front to reach that ceiling. And I think that ceiling's high. I think that ceiling's point per game. Just with all the skill that he oozes. I don't know if he gets there this year, but I do think eventually he does. I'm thinking like I would expect 50 points, but I realistically I think I think he's going to be in the 60 to 70 range.
You could see him pop off and like really kind of make his name known around the league. The big story with that second line is just how well do they finish, because that's kind of been a thing with all three of those guys has been they're finishing not great. Girard and Newhook, pretty good playmakers. Obviously, Nichushkin is whatever Val Nichushkin is. He's an animal. But I'm really encouraged to see what Newhook can do, especially because last year he didn't actually get many minutes at an actual center role because usually he was playing with JT, and JT often got those minutes at center. And we definitely saw,
yeah, he's an offensive black hole. So like,
if
I don't blame that on Newhook.
Yeah, if Newhook, we saw in the preseason, Newhook at center is a different beast. That's where he's comfortable. He gets that opportunity to drive the play more. He, like you said, he oozes talent, and it could be in for a huge season this year. It's going to be really fun to watch him develop as a player. So we've been sprinkling him in here and there. JT Compher has, I don't know. He's got like an interesting role on this team because, like we've kind of said, he's not a play driver, but he's just consistently kind of puts up points, and oftentimes it's kind of quiet. People don't really talk about him, but sometimes they do talk about him because, as some of us may know him as JT Clutchfur, he knows when to score his goals, but there's a decent chance that he's in for a big season along with the guys we were just talking about. I'm not expecting huge numbers, but we'll see. He was almost at 20 goals last year.
So it is a contract year, right?
Yeah.
So that's a big thing here, right?
Exactly.
How much does he want to get paid? Because I think if he keeps the same level of production that he has, he's going to get the same contract.
Yeah.
Especially being a Stanley Cup champion, like maybe even $500,000 more expensive.
Yeah, he got a little overpaid with this contract, but now he's kind of living up to it now.
I guess. I don't know.
Stanley Cup boost.
I think he's a fine 3C, a third line player, and I think he's a really good fourth line player. That's what I've always seen him as. The finish is so weird to me. Like, he does absolutely nothing to drive play. I mean, like, he is an offensive black hole. He doesn't do anything to push play up the ice. He's more of your get it to the red line, dump it in.
Yeah, but he knows where to go to get some opportunities.
Yeah, he finds the soft spots in the offensive zone, and he's like, hey, look at me, I'm open, or buries a rebound, stuff like that. It's odd man rushes as well. You find him in those sometimes, but it's never like, that bulldog going up the ice. That's not what you think of JT Compher as. But realistically, like, I'm just expecting, 30 to 40 points, 15-ish goals, another JT Compher season. And one thing I want to see from him is better penalty kill.
Yeah.
He's not very good at it. The Avs get crushed when he's out on the ice and they're killing penalties. And I haven't actually looked at the film or anything at all with him on the PK, but I can tell you the analytics aren't good. So that's one thing I'd like to see from him this year, because I feel like they're going to need a little help on that unit.
Yeah, he will likely get, I feel like, less minutes. I feel like you'd want to use Nuke and Lehkonen over him. Cogliano for sure. Helm when he gets back, obviously O'Connor. So he's kind of 6 man down on that totem pole fifth for now. So, maybe getting, kind of some transition minutes, when the guys just need a rest, maybe he'll be able to kind of find his game a little bit more in that kind of a role. But I have a little bit higher offensive expectations for him. Like I said, he was almost at 20 goals last year. And, we'll see. Granted, he's not going to be playing with an Andre Burakovsky or an Alex Newhook.
No.
So that's going to be the big problem is how well do his line mates do, and maybe what opportunities does he get. One of his line mates, Ben Myers, had an interesting preseason, to say the least, but he kind of brought it back at the end. We saw him last year. He showed good flashes. I think he'll be a solid NHL player for the team this year. I'm not entirely sure what to expect from him in terms of production, though.
Yeah, I think having him and JT Compher as that third line battery to start the season, and then you can just throw whoever you want with those two, is really good. Because I actually was probably a bigger fan of Myers preseason more than General Abs Twitter.
I didn't have strong feelings about it. I kind of just felt like it happened.
I liked it. I think he pushed
everybody also
the
just
ice.
Kind of forgot about that great assist he had in the Minnesota game no one could watch.
Right? A beautiful play. And Bowers with the finish. But no, I liked it more than most of General Avs Twitter did, because I think he pushes play up the ice in a way that the Avs want to, and he's going to fit perfect. And attaching him to JT Compher means you're going to, if you run into those defensive issues we saw in the preseason, him losing guys occasionally, it wasn't as big of a problem as I think Twitter made it out to be. But I think if you put those two together, that'll be really good, because Compher can kind of, take the load in his own zone, and Myers can worry about pushing the play up the ice. And I think I have a sneaky feeling that Ben Myers is going to score like 40-45 points this year.
He absolutely could. He really knows where to go on the ice. Like, I always see that guy in the offensive zone, and he's just like always open, and he always is just in a good a good chance. Like, you saw it in his first game. He had like 5 scoring opportunities before he finally scored against one of the best teams in the league.
Right. And I mean, he's got way more skill than I think people give him credit for.
Yeah.
And it's polished skill. It's not raw. Like, he's already 23, I believe. So he's a pretty polished hockey player, and I'm expecting at least 35-ish points, and him to grow in his own zone. But realistically, I think he could maybe even push 50, because he is a quality hockey player.
He is 23, going to be 25 in November.
24?
Or 24. Okay. Yeah, he's kind of just aged 2 years. Just there you go.
As that goes, 2 years at a time.
He's just so good at everything that he just ages faster.
Right.
He's so mature for his age.
He's already got a receding hairline, dude. He looks like he's like 31, and he'd be filing my taxes for me.
He's like the most bread and butter person ever. He looks so basic, and
I know.
Makes so much sense for the man. But now we're going to move to the back end. So this guy, he drew the ire of a lot of Avs fans throughout the last few years. I have always been one of his bigger fans. I did find myself getting frustrated with him a little bit last year, but I think people forget just how good Sam Girard actually is. We saw it in the playoffs. We have seen it so far in the preseason. He's a damn good player. I fully expect him to just return to form this year. Maybe he might even get better, but I feel like after the sternum injury, I feel like just a return to form is what is to be expected from Sammy.
He is so good, but please, Avalanche, Jared, take him off the power play. Like,
really?
He's not good at it, dude. He's not.
I see. This is where I disagree. See, I
So-
think if he's at the top, he's good. He needs to be distributing, and that's. I feel like personally, I would put him up top, Beau where he was, and then I'd save the big minutes for Taves.
My problem with him is at the top is that he can't shoot. Like this isn't like me being a dick to Sam Girard or whatever, but like I could probably slide a puck farther with my tongue. Like seriously.
Jesus.
Like, dude, like that thing is not touching 80 miles an hour. There's no way.
I don't know, man. But I don't feel like it's terrible enough. I feel like it's one of those where it's not fast, but he places it well.
He doesn't though. He gets it blocked every goddamn time.
That's only if he takes slap shots. He's just got to stop with the goddamn slap shots, and then we'll be fine. Look, as on a second power play unit, I understand where you're coming from. His shot isn't it's not good. I think his placement is good enough that he's good enough at shooting the puck, but his vision and his movement is he's so much. I feel like that's just kind of something that I have noticed lacks with Devon Taves, is that I feel like he's just so content to stand at the point and just kind of pass off to his wings. I don't see him, Sam can just, he's such a good passer. He finds the seams, he gets it through. And I think that's what helps more. And that's kind of been something that I think would help the power play too more, is that movement. And I feel like with him and Beau, you get a little bit more of that movement and that fluidity. But that's not really what we're talking about.
I want you to guess, okay? So you know how Jay Fresh does his hockey cards, right?
Yeah.
I want you to guess what percentile Sam Girard is in on the power play. Okay. And 43. I'll say higher or lower. What'd you say?
43.
Lower.
Oh God, 30.
Lower.
20.
Lower.
Oh my God. Like 14.
Lower.
Jesus Christ. Was this just last year or?
This is the last 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know. I've never had that big of a problem with him.
Zero.
Mm-hmm. What's Devon at?
0. Taves is at like 30. Because he's got a bomb. But yeah, Sam Girard.
He's got a bomb because of Sam Girard. Who's the one always dropping the puck back to him?
Sam Girard is 0. Is in the, I don't even know how to say it. The 0th percentile on the power. Like he's one of the worst power play players in the league, and I do think it's because of deployment. Like I think he's better at the top. I think him on the half wall is not good at all.
That's where I really don't like him. If you're gonna put him at the half wall, don't put him on the power play because
especially on the strong side, dude. Like
he doesn't shoot.
Yeah. But anyway, so I think big picture though for Girard, let's kind of reel this back in from him sucking at the power play. I'm expecting 40 to 50 points. I'm expecting some suspect defense at some points. But I'm expecting him to re-solidify himself as a legit top 4 defenseman.
Yeah. I mean, his defense has its questionable moments, but for the most part, he's a good defender for a top 4. Like
he moves the puck so well.
Oh, his breakout is just fantastic. The way at 5v5 on the point, the way he moves along the blue line and the perimeter and the way he just like I said, he finds seams. Mm-hmm. Like we saw flashes of it this year. It's just he wasn't quite himself, but like he gained his form back after he came back from injury.
Yeah, and I do attribute it to Jack Johnson because I thought Girard was really good when he was with Manson in the playoffs.
I'm excited to see Girard and Manson together, hopefully.
Yeah, I hope that sticks. I like Beau and EJ, and I know they want to play EJ less, and obviously Beau more, but I think that pairing just works so well that just roll those two and pick your spots with Beau, so you can get him more ice time.
Yeah, you're gonna have to do some real rearranging if you want to get Beau away from EJ, and I feel like it's just not really worth it at that point. I feel like you're messing with too many good things.
Dude, that pair was so good.
Oh yeah, all three pairs for the Avs were just so good together. They just work.
Mm-hmm. Especially Beau and EJ. I mean, they were up in the 70th, in the regular season. Obviously, this isn't playoffs, but when they were together in the regular season for like those last, 15, 20 games, they were rolling at 70% expected goals.
I loved that line.
Isn't that that is unheard of.
That is pretty nuts.
Like,
it's just
I'd keep those two together. That's just me though.
EJ just works with good puck moving defensemen. It's always been like something he's done well. He just always kind of plays well with them. Now, speaking of Beau and Byram, what do we expect from him this year? Because, boy, howdy, if he's another one of those guys. If he just stays healthy, dear God, look out. How he was in the playoffs was just fucking nuts.
Oh, yeah. No, this might be reaching, but here's my 2 Beau predictions this year.
Okay.
He leads the team in 5v5 ice time. And he, like he did in the Stanley Cup final, and he gets 60 points and 20 goals.
I could see 60 points. How many goals? 20?
Yeah, I think his shot. I think he has a good shot. I think he was
if
getting
he
really
starts, figuring out how to hit the inside of the post instead of the outside, he'll definitely score some goals.
Right. Yeah. And maybe like stop checking to see if there's a hole in the goalie's chest.
Yeah, he needs to.
There never is. So
there's one thing he needs to do. He needs to start shooting the puck faster. That's the only problem I've ever had with Beau, is that he needs to really learn to catch and release a little bit more. He's always been a little bit there were some chances in the final where he just took too long, but that's okay because he's still dope as hell.
But anyway, I think Beau and Byram is legit. I think he's to me, I don't even know who to compare him to. Like maybe like young Drew Doughty, something like that. Just a horse. And
his defensive zone is really good.
It's beautiful, man.
He's such an aggressive player.
He's aggressive at the blue line, and he's smart along the wall. One thing I would like to see from Beau this year is he struggles with knowing where his outlets are sometimes from his O zone, or from his D zone, my bad. And that causes him to take some pretty gnarly hits. Like, he takes a beating. And
he is not shying away from taking hits a little too much.
Yeah, like, dude, like just take a look before you get to the puck, so you're not looking while you have it. And then you get blown up. Like, just for the sake of his health, dude, like,
right.
That's one thing I'd like to see from him, but
I
have no complaints. He's so good.
Yeah, Beau Byram is just, he's special. Now this is the biggest question mark coming into the Avs this season. Goalies. Now we know what Pavel Francouz is. For him,
do we though?
I don't know. I feel like we have a pretty good idea.
I kind of want to get into this in a second.
Of what he is and what he can be. Now, I have high hopes for Alexander Georgiev. I think we mentioned it on the last pod. I think he'll really flourish with Parkala. His side-to-side movement is really good. He showed really well in the preseason. And I think having this team's defensive structure kind of around him will really help him kind of shine and maybe gain a little bit of confidence in his goaltending. I don't know that much about goaltending. I don't know much about what goalies are particularly good at or what they need to work at. Sometimes I can pick out, I can look at a clip and be like, okay, well, this is what the goalie did wrong and this is what he's doing right and stuff like that. But it's hard to say. And then obviously Francouz has shown really well in his time with Colorado when healthy. people have said he hasn't really been able to take the number one spot. I mean, I feel like on other teams he would. He's just kind of been stuck behind really good goalies.
So let's get into Georgiev before Francouz.
Yeah.
My Alexander Georgiev opinion is not known very much. So I guess I'll give it here. When I watch Alexander Georgiev play hockey, I watch him give up goals. And that's all I've ever watched him do. I don't think he's very good. I think he can get better because he's young-ish. Obviously, like he could surprise me, but I think he's a backup. And I think Frankie's your starter. And I'll get into it. I think come playoff time, unless Georgiev shocks me, I think Frankie's your starter. And I can get into why, but I want to hear your Frankie takes first.
I mean, first of all, I would like to rebuttal that Georgiev. I think Georgiev is a better goalie. He has shown well in at times in his NHL career. He is not like a slouch in net. I like I said, I don't like know much about his game, but from what I've seen, he has like the fundamentals that are there. It's just kind of getting it more consistent. Like he had some nuts games last year. Like he had really like 40 save games, like high 30s. He has the ability to be a really good, I don't know about really good, but like a good enough goalie for this team. I think he just needs to put it together and he needs to string it together more consistently on a night-to-night basis. That's kind of the thing with Frankie as well, although Frankie is older. And I think one thing, I don't know, I love Frankie, and I think he's a great backup, and I think he can, with the way they're running the goaltending this year, I think he can be a really good 1B. I think he could be a good 1B for any team, but I don't know. I just feel like he lacks the consistency, which, you know, goalies have different aging curves and stuff like that. So he could figure it out. It's just, for me, with Frankie, it's all about consistency.
I understand that argument, and I know it seems like, you know, every time he's had the opportunity to take the starting role, he's just given it away. And I want to rebuttal on that comment because I hear that a lot, you know, the consistency. So in Frankie's first season in the NHL, right, 1920, he put up, I believe it was a 917.
Yeah, it was pretty high.
I can double check, or you can really quick. And I think he played 30-ish games because Grubauer got hurt. And that's really good. And he showed when Grubauer's out for long stretches that
34 games, 923 save percentage.
Yeah. He showed in that season that when Grubauer missed a long stretch, like I think Grubauer missed 3-ish weeks at one point, that he was more than capable of being the starter. And, you know, bad games happen, and bad Frankie games are, you know, like he gives up a lot of soft goals, and that's where I think like people see the soft goals and they're like, wow, he just is giving this opportunity away. But he really is a good goalie. And then obviously he gets hurt, and then he gets hurt again, and he's terrible in the bubble, but he's playing with broken hips, so he gets hip surgery. He gets his ankle fixed last year. He comes back and he's just okay.
I completely forgot why he was injured last year.
It was a weird. Injured. I was there. It was so weird, man. He like tried to push off his post in a preseason game, and I don't know what happened, but he made an oopsie. We'll just call it. It was a non-contact thing.
Yeah.
It was freak. It was a freak thing.
Unfit to play, undisclosed lower body injury.
It was an ankle. You could see it
undisclosed
on the replay. But I think, so he came back last year and he was just okay, right? And I think people looked at him just being okay and they were like, oh, okay, Frankie's just a backup. Well, he's coming off double hip surgery and an ankle thing, and this is his first 20 to 30 games back. And then he goes and wins you 6 playoff games in a row. And I know the playoff save percentage is 906, but I think there's a little bit of context here.
Yeah, that kind of got tanked by that one Edmonton game.
He comes into game 1 of that series, and he's thrown right straight into the fire, right?
Yeah.
That game is off its rocker. It ends up 8-6, and he gives up backdoor tap-ins because the Avs forgot how to play defense for a game. And the next game, he pitches a shutout, and it's beautiful. And then he goes to Edmonton, and he kicks ass in game 3.
Yeah, that game 3 was weird. He gave up some softies, but then he also absolutely robbed
so good in
McDavid.
that game. And I understand softies because, I've scored some softies as a defenseman, as a player.
Yeah, I mean, look, he
happens.
gave up the right amount of softies, which was less than the other goalie.
Hockey happens. And then obviously, game 4 wasn't the best, but when you're playing Draisaitl and McDavid, sometimes you get beat on open looks, and the Avs didn't play well.
Yeah, I didn't have a giant problem with
I didn't have a problem with him in that game.
Yeah, I think God, I'm trying to think.
I didn't.
The Connor McDavid, the third goal, McDavid's goal on the power play was something that I was like,
see, I didn't have a problem with that. I think that's just Frankie being a small goalie.
Yeah, but I feel like he needs to know that, and he needs to compensate and challenge a little bit more. I know a lot of people had a problem with that fourth goal that he gave up.
I did not have a problem.
That was the weirdest thing ever to me, because I'm like, that was like the perfect shot. It was whatever.
Right.
But I get what you're saying, and I will be not surprised at all if Frankie just shows out and proves himself as a starter. We are running a little bit low on time. Now, I do. Any other thoughts you have on Frankie? Really quick.
My last thought on Frankie is, so I kind of judge goalies based on my feel when I'm watching the game. I know it sounds really weird, but okay, let's just say Philip Grubauer's in my net, right? Any given shot, I'm uncomfortable, man. I just am. It could go in. I've seen everything with that goalie. It could go in. I don't feel good. And with Frankie, I'm like, oh yeah, that's not going in. Frankie's there, he's gonna gobble that shit up.
You and me have very different Frankie feels.
I just feel good.
I'm not uncomfortable when he's in net, but I do. It does seem like sometimes, we saw in his shutout game, he threw the puck up and he almost got. He threw it right to an Edmonton guy, and
dude, totally. But every time I see a guy walking in on him, I'm just like, this isn't going in. He's gonna make the save, and obviously he gives up the fluky stuff more than any other goalie I think I've ever seen. But I can deal with the fluky stuff. I can't deal with
Frankie
getting
is
beat clean.
Probably simultaneously the luckiest and the unluckiest goalie I've ever watched in the NHL. It's nuts.
Darcy Kemper and Philip Grubauer, the last two Avs goalies, they get beat clean all the time. All the time. Darcy Kemper to the blocker. Grubauer was more glove. I mean, Grubauer's everywhere, if I'm being honest. He just faced 20 shots a game. And you saw that in Seattle.
I'm not getting into this.
But just like Frankie, he doesn't get beat clean. I don't know. I feel good when he's in the net. With Georgiev, I don't know. I don't have that feel yet. We'll see how that goes. But I think Georgiev's track record says he's gotten worse every year. So I guess I'm a little lower on him than Frankie. Whereas Frankie just came off of major injury, and he was pretty good.
You do got to remember, just because Shesterkin did well again behind that Rangers defense doesn't mean they didn't suck. I understand where you're coming from, but I think really quick, any final thoughts on this?
No.
On the lineup decisions, anything?
No, I like the Avs. They're going to be good. That's all I got.
Well, there you go. Not much else to say from here. So we hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube if that's where you're watching. Follow on whatever podcast platform you're listening to. We'll be back with hopefully at least one more podcast before the home opener. And we will see you next time. Have a good one, everybody.